What is up, wrestling fans? It's that time of the week for the Fanlight Zone Wrestling Team to talk all things pro wrestling. And more importantly, call it right down the middle. That's right, it's time for this week's edition of 607 TWS, The Wrestling Show. And we are live on the Fanlight Zone YouTube channel, Twitch, and X. Thank you so much for joining us on whatever platform you're on. I am your host. I am also the executive producer over here at Fanlight Zone. My name is Rich. Joining me in the co-pilot's chair, as she does each and every week, she is the hunter of the Pokemon, because she's got to catch them all. She is the guru of cosplay, and more importantly for this show, she is a pro grappling connoisseur. It is the First Lady of Fanlight Zone, Miss Sammy. How are you today?
I'm a little sluggish today, but I'm ready to talk some pro grappling. How you doing, Rich?
Hanging in there. We got a lot of pro wrestling to talk about. A lot of big things. I've done some interviews. Speaking of which, if you're on the YouTube channel, just did a great interview with Ben Morrow talking to Huxley, the Oracle. We got some other stuff lined up that you're going to see next week. A lot of stuff going on here at Fanlight Zone. Hopefully you're all along for the ride. We're going to get to that in a minute, because let's just go ahead and say it. Head on over right there, QR code, scan it. Head over to fanlightzone.com. There you can check out comic book reviews that we got, because New Comic Book Day was just yesterday as we are live on Thursday. So check out all the great new comic book reviews, as long as all the other articles we have, including some pro wrestling articles with some more launching pretty soon. Of course, we are comic books and pop culture. So you're going to want to make sure you check out fanlightzone.com. And then, of course, the call to arms each and every week. Not only at fanlightzone.com, but make sure you're following us on all the great social medias. You can find all those links over at fanlightzone.com. But more importantly, if you are watching us on YouTube, you have part of this done. If you are watching us on one of the other platforms after the show, because we're not asking you to change right now, after the show, head on over to the Fanlight Zone YouTube channel, smash the subscribe button, click that bell icon for notifications, and hit the thumbs up to help us fight that algorithm and help us grow here at Fanlight Zone through the website, our social medias, and of course the YouTube channel. It's always an uphill battle. You know what I mean? Always an uphill battle. But we are here to slay it. We are here to slay it like Roman Reigns is here to slay it. We're going to jump right into the Royal Rumble, of course, and let's get the graphic on the screen and just start talking wrestling. Royal Rumble went down this past Saturday over on ESPN Direct here in the States, worldwide on Netflix, and of course in the States, if you have the thing that's called a VPN, hint VPN companies, if you would like to sponsor 607 TWS, we are open for business. Of course, it went down this past Saturday from beautiful, wonderful, progressive Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, at the Riyadh Season Stadium, the stadium that they built in basically 30 days.
It looked complete. Didn't look very full.
Well, here's the problem. It was very full, though. Here's the problem. Whoever thought, okay, so this is one of those things that I'm going to just start off by saying, and it's kind of Lincoln's back. He dropped a year. What up, Lincoln? Always glad to see you, my friend. I'm glad that you're back in the chat. We're loving it and waiting for you to give your comments all night, because I can't wait to hear your thoughts on this stuff as well. But diving back into what I was saying, the stadium
the weird
was
seat lights things.
It was the light.
Weird.
So the light, by the way, that looks super cool. Like with the entrances and stuff, I thought it looked super cool, but it did take away from seeing the audience. So so when the spotlight would hit it, when those lights were on, you could see the people there. And then during the match, you could see that it was full. But that was what really threw me off, because during the matches, all of a sudden it was in the entrances, like during the rumbles, it looked like it was like nobody there, and then all of a sudden there was people there, so it was like ghosts.
Well, and there were a couple of entrances too for people that clearly didn't really hit well with the crowd. So it's like, well, we can't see you, and now we can't hear you. So it's like, is anyone there?
They ran into the same. I'm gonna beat the. I know I'm not even beating a dead horse here, but let's be honest. They ran into the same problem last year. Some of the music that they use is so generic, and then they change people's music like at the Rumble, so nobody knew who was coming out. Like, this is the problem. This is where, and I'm going to say this. I don't care. We don't like, we compare and contrast, and we're just going to literally say, this is one thing that I do enjoy more about All Elite Wrestling is that they're willing to pay for licensed music. And so everybody's music feels original. And even the people who don't have licensed music have like full on music. Like it's different. It feels like something. It's familiar. And in WWE, they've gone like they keep going from one weird group to the other that does their music stuff, and it just sucks. And so there was a bunch of people whose music you can't call from another person's because the crowd, when they knew who it was, reacted. When the crowd didn't know who it was like, okay. And they ran into the same problem last year's Rumble. So it wasn't
so
just
stay tuned. So everyone stay tuned for a future episode where Rich and I compare AEW themes to WWE themes for wrestlers that have jumped from one or the other.
Oh, bro.
Because I don't think it's a competition for some of them.
It's not even close. It's not even close. Like in WWE should see the value in doing the licensed music because look at CM Punk. Call the personalities licensed music, and they have other ones like I know it's not well technically it's licensed. Rhea Ripley, that's Motionless in White. So they've hired bands. Certain people have it. I forgot the name of the band that does Becky Lynch's music, but you have real bands doing people's music. So why not just do that across the board? It makes it makes it
well, and obviously WWE was spoiled with an embarrassment of riches for a long time with Jim Johnson and how incredibly talented it was and the amazing themes that he wrote for people. And then you filter in some of those pop culture bands and such, not necessarily pop bands, but pop culture bands, from everywhere to just give some certain wrestlers just that little extra. And it was music to our ears for years and years and years. And ever since it's just been, and AEW does it well.
Oh yeah. I will give, here's where WWE could succeed in what AEW does. Like I said, even the original music that is made over there has a familiar sound to it. They do a good job of their in-house stuff, doing really, really good job of making it. And WWE could do it because giving full credit, and we'll talk about we're going to get to the matches here in a second, but Natty Neidhart's new music, where they mixed in the Hart Foundation thing, but then they kind of ripped off Killing in the Name of because that's the music she uses when she's doing Bloodsport and all the other shows she's doing as Natty. I thought I'm like, okay, so instantly, we hear the Heart music, so we know it's Heart, and then it switches into a ripoff of Killing in the Name of, and I'm like, okay, that's fine. I get it. Although they should have just paid for the rights, but then again, who knows? Rage Against the Machine is probably not selling the rights, so you have that. But I'm fine with that. But I digress. So those were like the two big things that came out. It's like nobody was there. Yes, there was. It was a full stadium of people. The problem was the lighting, which, like I said, it looked cool, giving it full transparency, but it didn't look cool from like the audience. But like not being able to see the audience when the lights were going on didn't work out well. I feel like it'll work better at like WrestleMania or like any other show than it would.
Yeah, like a music venue event. Yeah, and I don't think it worked well for
Well, even for WWE, it will because it's just that way when the entrances are going down. But the problem is the Rumble, you have entrances happening every 90 seconds.
Yeah, right? But they're going to build a new stadium for the next show, so we're not long for the stadium, guys. Come on.
This stadium was 30 days. They got another 30. It'll take 30 days to tear down. It'll take another 30 days to put a new one up. It is what it is. So let's dive into the card. Believe it or not, there was 2 dark matches. Obviously, we didn't get to see this, but I'll just run through them. There was a tag match where the Wyatt Six, Dexter Lumis and Joe Gacy, defeated the MFT, Solo Sikoa and Tama Tonga in 10 minutes and 27 seconds. And then there was a 6-man tag team extravaganza where the Motor City Machine Guns, Alex Shelley and Chris Sabin, tagged with Shinsuke Nakamura to defeat the New Day, Kofi Kingston, Xavier Woods, and Grayson Waller, 11 minutes and 15 seconds. This would explain why, if you watch the Stephanie McMahon interview with AJ Styles, which we'll dive into more later, why Xavier Woods was actually in Saudi Arabia, because I was like, why was Xavier? I didn't remember seeing him in the Rumble. He was on the dark match before the Rumble. So we had those. Now let's kick into the show. We opened with the 30-woman over-the-top Royal Rumble match to determine who will be getting a World Championship match at WrestleMania 42. By the way, they have switched it out to saying World Championship match instead of main event. So good, kudos to them. We bitched about that all last year and all the year before that. Yeah, so at least they've picked it up there. So we got to once again call it down the middle, right? So at the end of the day, we'll just say the winner. At the end of the day, making both of us right because we both picked Bianca Belair if she returned, but we both picked the winner of the match if she didn't return, and that would be Liv Morgan is your 2026 winner of the Royal Rumble match. To note, we did get a couple surprises, and we're just say. And we had we'll save the big one for last. So we'll say we had some NXT stars. Lola Vice representing NXT, Sol Ruka representing NXT, the NXT Women's Champion JC Jane, and then also Kalani Jordan also was representing. We also had the return of Tiffany Stratton, which we both predicted would happen. I think everybody did. It wasn't a big secret, although coming out at number 30 was fine. But I don't think anybody had on their bingo card your number 29 entrant, which a little earlier, we had Nikki Bella, which we've come used to Nikki Bella coming in. She was number 25 to be exact. And at number 29, we got Brie Mode, the return of Brie Bella to World Wrestling Entertainment for the Royal Rumble. We'll talk more right after about the road to WrestleMania, about their role on Raw. However, what was your thoughts on the Women's Royal Rumble match overall, though?
This was the better of the two, in my opinion. I think it worked really well. I think the NXT stars got a much better ovation overall, for the most part. Not everyone, but especially Sol Ruka. Absolute star making moment. And I think one thing, Liv Morgan makes a lot of sense, and we talked about that. It made a lot of sense. But one thing that this Rumble did really, really effectively is it highlighted how strong the tag team division is in women's wrestling in WWE. And I think that's awesome that you were able to tell that story. You were able to establish some of the NXT stars, and obviously you're continuing the story of Liv Morgan. So there was a lot in this Rumble, and I think it was the better of the two.
I agree. So I'm going to say this. The Women's Rumble opened with a fun spot between Alexa Bliss and Charlotte Flair, who were your number 1 and 2 entrants, respectively. Swapped them around because Charlotte was actually number 1. But they had a fun moment where it looked like they were going to do moves to each other and then didn't. I did dig that. So it was a lot of fun. And then they kind of tagged together for the first little bit. As we went through the match, though, in the beginning part, I felt like there was some growing pains. I felt like the first maybe 10 entrants, it was a little herky-jerky. It wasn't quite as crisp as we're kind of used to. But then after everybody kind of settled in, I felt like it really started to hit its stride. So that's where I think it came out. MVPs of this match for me were Lash Legend and Sol Ruka. Lash Legend, talk about star-making performances. Lash Legend eliminated a lot of people, was getting the crowd to boo her because she was eliminating like people that people liked. Made a real impact, took full advantage of her time in the Rumble, so kudos to her. The other MVP, Sol Ruka, I point out, makes it to the final 3.
Right.
Has a great showing, electrifying, showing why she's going to be a big star coming down the pike, giving her all the credit in the world. And I'm just going to say, the finish of this match, the way that the 3 on the apron, Tiffany Stratton, Liv Morgan, and Sol Ruka pulled off 3 people on the apron, was beautiful. We've seen the 2-person on the apron. We've seen a bunch of stuff. I love how you have the 3 of them going back and forth. Sol Ruka goes for the Soul Snatcher outside the ring, obviously on the apron, onto Tiffany Stratton. Stratton pulls the Samoa Joe, and not today Satan kind of just sidesteps and pushes. So there gives her Sol Ruka. But as soon as she does that, Liv Morgan, boom, Oblivion outside the ring to eliminate Tiffany Stratton and win the Rumble. And then I did appreciate the storytelling with Liv Morgan eliminating Raquel Rodriguez earlier in the match, and actually picking up on that on Raw and continuing that story. So there's a little bit of friction. We always thought it was going to be the men that imploded Judgment Day, and it looks like it might be the ladies. So kudos overall. I still thought it was a tremendous thing, and Liv Morgan winning 110% the right decision in my opinion. 110%. It would the only way it would have been the only way I would have not been okay with it is if Bianca Belair did return, because I just think that you would have had an easier story route there. However, who knows? She still could return at Elimination Chamber in between now and in WrestleMania. Hopefully, if not, I don't know what we're doing on the other channel. We'll get to that in a minute when we talk more about WrestleMania. We did have a couple matches after that. We had the retirement match. We'll just say it out loud. Gunther defeated AJ Styles in 24 minutes, 15 seconds. They went to the well that they went to with John Cena. Not that I'm saying that's a bad thing. Who would have thought for the second time in pretty much a month and a half, the spot that we would all be excited about is a sleeper hold / rear naked choke spot. This time, Uncle Allen goes out with the passing out in the ring, and that's he calls it a career. Of course, I think more people were talking after the match when he was going to take his gloves off, then put them back on, and then pose. And of course, that got the internet all sorts of up in an uproar. Obviously, oh my God, he's going to AEW. Oh my God, he's going to New Japan. Oh my God, he's going back to TNA. I don't think any of those are true.
It could happen, but he's been pretty clear that this is his last year in wrestling, and it is only February, so maybe they're willing to do a 3-match spot in AEW. You do a 3-month. I mean, maybe anything's possible, but yeah, it was a really, really spectacular match, though.
Oh, it was a phenomenal match, pun intended. Once again, I was kind of whatever about them ending the career there. It is what it is. I mean, we know it was coming to an end this year. Once again, I'll reference the Stephanie McMahon podcast. He talks about it. She asked him about the putting the gloves on. He said he didn't know, and he just said, basically speaking, he doesn't want to rule out down the road because it feels like everybody comes back for one match, but he doesn't want to rule out down the road to him coming back for another match. But he was specific in saying that the dream match that he would come back for was the tag team with his son, who is training to be a professional wrestler. So therefore, I think everybody, I mean, I'm not saying that he can't go somewhere else or do anything else, but I'm also kind of saying that it kind of feels to me that we knew Uncle Allen was going home. And it makes sense because, if you watch that interview with on the Stephanie McMahon podcast, which if you haven't seen it yet, it's a very good interview with AJ Styles. They really get into talking about his family, and they get into talking about everything else. And it seems to me that that a lot of this came up, honestly, because of a daddy-daughter dance, which kind of sounds weird. Now he says that he's free to go to the daddy-daughter dance in May. So I feel like, there was a couple of things that it was hinted at there that I think that's why the time was now. I guess a few weeks before his retirement, his daughter was saying to his wife, his 11-year-old daughter was saying to his wife that kids at school think that it's really cool that her dad is AJ Styles, which, and it's really awesome. And she was like, well, I think it's awesome, that they have their dads are home every night. So I really feel like that draw to be home for AJ is really, really, and he's also training his son how to wrestle, his 18-year-old son how to wrestle. So there's, I really think that we might see him probably at the Hall of Fame. I would assume he's going first ballot, or that would be the smart move if I was, booking the Hall of Fame. But outside of that, I don't think we're going to see him come back to the ring this year, at least. I think that the phenomenal one is at least out for now. He's not ruling out the future, but once again, he kind of was specific on tagging with his son because he thinks that would be really cool. Don't blame him. Don't blame him. If I had a son that was coming in and I was a wrestler like him, I would go. Next up, we had the undisputed WWE Championship match. Your champion, the Scottish psychopath, Drew McIntyre, taking on Sami Zayn. This was a home field advantage for Sami Zayn as he considers Saudi Arabia like his second home, as he keeps saying. This match at the end of the day got 16 minutes and 15 seconds. And guess what? They didn't go for the big pop. Your winner and still WWE undisputed champion, Drew McIntyre. Solid match overall. Exciting match. They really laid it on, thinking Sami was going to win it at some points in juncture in the match. He had the underdog comeback. He slipped on the banana peel, as the old phrase goes, at the end there. And Drew McIntyre takes advantage and retains the title. I'm fine with it. We'll talk more when we're talking about WrestleMania. I still think there's some opportunities left on the table. But what were your thoughts on the Undisputed Championship match?
It kind of really played out the way I thought it would. I figured Sammy would continue to be the underdog. I'm still hopeful he'll be the one to dethrone Gunther at some point, as he is his kryptonite. But you know, I mean, kudos at the end of the day. It was a good match. It really helps establish Drew as a proper heel. We know Drew can be a little bit of a tweener, a little bit. People do really enjoy his social media commentary and stuff. But if you're doing it with Gunther and you're really trying to make like a real heel, I mean, you might as well try with other people as well. So kudos to WWE for doing that.
Well, that brings us to the men's Royal Rumble match. 30-man Royal Rumble winner gets a championship match at WrestleMania 42 in Las Vegas. And let's not bury the lead. Winner of the match, your tribal chief, Roman Reigns, has won the 2026 men's Royal Rumble match. Let's go into the match before we talk about the winner, though. We had some surprises in this match as well. Most notably, we had a couple luchadors. Well, actually, we had 4 luchadors if you go with but we had 2 from AAA. One was Mr. Iguana, and then La Parka was the other, which was kind of fun. And then we actually had El Grande Americano come into the match. But right after him, we got original El Grande Americano, as it looks like, let's be honest, call it down the middle. It looks like Chad Gable is back in the ring, and him and El Grande Americano are kind of feuding it out now, it looks like. It was a fun moment in the Rumble. And then we had the big surprise of the evening, if you will. The number 14th entrant into the Royal Rumble was a man formerly known as Powerhouse Hobbs, now known as Royce Keys, is now in WWE, made his debut. We did ponder if he would make his debut at the Royal Rumble. Sure enough, he does. Not upset about that at all. But before we just break down the Rumble as a whole, we have to talk about what happened in the beginning of the Rumble. So there was a botch on SmackDown, and the world found out that Braun Breaker had drawn number 2 on SmackDown on complete accident. It was a botch. WWE, giving them full credit during the pre-show, covered themselves in a weird way, by having Paul Heyman accuse Adam Pearce of,
fixing it,
fixing the Rumble, even though it's ridiculous. He at least they tried to play off the botch, right? So now we had the first number 1, which was Oba Femi. So Oba Femi, big time entrant. Everybody was looking forward to it. Here we have Oba Femi. And then Braun Breaker's on his way to the ring. And just as he gets in, he gets attacked by somebody in a hood wearing a mask, who ends up basically curb stomping him. And he gets thrown into the ring. Match starts and clothesline out. There goes Braun Breaker, which, funny enough, right before this happened, I said, hey, WWE I told Ken M and Dog, hey, WWE, before he even gets jumped, I'm like, WWE has a real fun thing that they can do here. Everybody's expecting a big showing out of Braun Breaker, and Oba Femi could just knock him out of the ring. I didn't call him getting jumped, but knock him out of the ring. And sure enough, that's kind of, in essence, what happens. So
and it worked.
And it worked. It worked. It was a gigantic move there. So with that being said, your thoughts on the men's Royal Rumble?
Overall, the way the match was laid out, there were a couple of interesting moments. Brock Lesnar kind of getting eliminated during an entrance. I didn't like, once again, Jay's just gotta, all entrance. They even have to do that. I'm like, So I like I said earlier, I felt the women's match was a little stronger. It's interesting. It's interesting in a manner of seeing Roman win it. It's not that he's not deserving of it. It's not that he's, not the top guy in WWE. It's just it kind of goes to the creative bankruptcy we talk about, and it's like, oh, you've break glass in case of emergency, so you're pulling the Roman Reigns card because you need Roman to literally come in and save WrestleMania. But I don't know. I mean, is Roman going to really win at WrestleMania? Because then you're right back in the same position you were before, where you have a part-timer with the belt. That was the problem before that people complain about. I don't think Netflix is really interested in that. I think Netflix and the USA Network as well. I think they want their champions there. They want them seen, and Roman works best now as the guy who does show up every once in a while. He's very good in that role. Would Roman just get overexposed in a manner if he's there every week? If he really did show up every week, kinda, because most people do. That's what happens. So I don't know. It's weird. It's weird. I get it, but it's weird.
Once again, I mean, and I'm not saying this because I am a genius. I'm just saying this because, hey, I told you so. I'm saying this because it made the most sense and they dropped the ball on it. You had the opportunity to get a gigantic pop, give the belt to Sami Zayn, going into WrestleMania with Sami Zayn as champion, and then you had the opportunity of the biggest heel in the company, and Gunther, who comes into the Rumble at number 30. So the sweetest number ever, after getting rid of everybody's hero in AJ Styles and retiring him, after retiring John Cena, right? So within 2 months, he's retired two of the biggest names in wrestling. The crowd is hating him, and he gets the number 30 number. All you have to do is have Gunther win, and boom, you have it handed to you on a silver platter. And you have a storyline, and you have something good. You have the lovable underdog who finally makes it in Sami Zayn. And now you're reversing the roles of when the Intercontinental title was on the line at WrestleMania 40 to be specific, between Zayn and Gunther. And you're getting the inverse of that, where Gunther can destroy the impossible dream and go on to be the dream, stealer, not just the career killer, right? And then it's easy. It writes itself. He steals it from Sami. He takes the belt from Sami. He steals his dream. He steals everything. And then he goes on, as we know, later in the year to probably retire Brock Lesnar. Here it is. You've just written all your stuff till SummerSlam. It's on the table. It's not even outside of the box. It's just, hey, it makes sense, and people would tune in for it.
Yep.
And instead you go, you know what? You hit the nail on the head. You went, in case of emergency, break glass, grab Roman Reigns. Interesting to me. Interesting. And that's going to carry us right on. Well, actually, before I get that, overall, what was your overall thoughts on the Royal Rumble? Yay, nay? Where were you at with the Royal Rumble in 2026?
Yeah, it passed. It passed the test. It wasn't the greatest Rumble of all time, but it was passing. It was good. It was entertaining.
I was happy that the commercials were real commercial breaks this time. That's going to sound weird, right? Instead with this screen that just said commercial here. I forgot to mention that. But overall, it was okay. I'm not saying it was great, and I'm not saying it was bad. The retirement match was really good. Sami Zayn and Drew McIntyre did what it needed to do. The last 2/3 of the women's match was really good. And then the men's rumble was, it was fine, but it wasn't anything to write home about. Only excited about Liv winning, which opens up a few doors. But outside of that, like I said, it wasn't one of my favorite rumbles. It's not one of the worst rumbles. There's some way, way, way worse, but it wasn't also my favorite of all time either. Speaking of which, though, that puts us now firmly on the road to WrestleMania. That's right. And this is going to be something we're going to be coming back to week after week, because obviously it's that time of the year. So we have a lot of speculation going on. There's going to be a lot of things being made around the way, but we do have some news about the road to WrestleMania. Let's start with probably the one thing that we know. So we found out on Monday Night Raw, Roman Reigns wasted no time in choosing who he will take on at WrestleMania. As Roman Reigns came to the ring at the end of the night to the thunderous applause, CM Punk cut him off after he was debating who he would go against. CM Punk starts cutting a promo on Finn Balor, which I like because it makes Finn Balor feel important. But at the end of the day, Roman Reigns is like, hey, you're coming out here and you're cutting promos on guys that aren't even in the ring. You should be focused on what's more important. And the two of them do a little sparring battle, and then Roman Reigns, which we never would have said this 8 years ago, 5 years ago even. This shows how much he's grown on the mic. Oh boy, this could be a really great feud on the mic, as Roman Reigns really let CM Punk have it. Tell CM Punk, listen, I'm out here, talking about this, and you're talking down Drew McIntyre, and then granted, you're who you are, but look at you. Last time I was in the ring with you, I reached out my hand to shake it. You said some stupid stuff like Zebros. then you treated me, then you mocked me from behind me and treated me like some kind of young boy. You know what? When you left 10 years ago, I hate you. I've never liked you. I've always hated you. And so at WrestleMania, I could pick you because you are the bigger draw. I could pick you because you are, a headlining guy. But I'm picking you because I hate you and I'm going to end you. And I was like, all right. First and foremost, I'm going to talk about it in a second. I'm not exactly thrilled about the main event scene in WrestleMania. We'll talk about that. However, at least they brought a problem to the table. We're not just going, hey, I'm going to fight you because you're the bigger star, which is granted is true. When you're looking at main eventing night 2 of WrestleMania, Roman Reigns versus CM Punk is a nice little marquee, right? It puts asses in seats, as we would say, right? This also gets Punk a day 1 and a night 2 main event for a guy who never main evented WrestleMania. So here we are. We could all talk about the show, but just speaking on what happened on Raw, I'm like, okay, we're adding personal issues to this. I like this. I like the fact that Roman Reigns could have just said, like he said in that Pat McAfee interview, hey, I'm coming back because nobody's gotten over without me. I'm still the straw that stirs the drink. I need to be there to save everybody's ass. And that's what Punk's angle was, right? He went after him for that. But then Roman Reigns expertly flips the script and just goes, hey, no. You've always been a piece of, garbage. And I hate you. And even when I thought that you were a good person, you mocked me. And I know you mocked me and you treated me like a young boy. I ain't nobody's young boy. I am the top draw in this world of wrestling, not just WWE. It came across like that. And I'm like, okay, congratulations. Amazing job to Roman Reigns and CM Punk, but Roman Reigns really pulled it.
I think that's important to highlight too, is that CM Punk really he poked him in a lot of the right ways. He said a lot of the right things to really kind of egg him on, and it really did bring out the best in Roman Reigns, which was awesome. And that's what Punk is really good at as well. He's good at just kind of stirring the pot a little bit, which was good. I liked that CM Punk came out and immediately started talking about Finn Balor. It helps elevate Finn Balor because Finn Balor has been, he's been named Pin Balor for a long time. It's going to be really hard to rehab that image, but doing things like that help. I like that they did pick apart Drew McIntyre a little bit because they kept talking about him. That helps bring Drew McIntyre. We've talked about AEW and their main event scene and how there are so many people involved. And we're going to get into that a little bit later as well, because now it seems like there's even more people involved. And everyone in that main event scene seems like a legitimate, contender and or person who could just be the champion there. And that works really great. And I'm hoping that WWE is trying to implement that as well. And it's going to take time because, again, if you want to use Finn Balor, it's going to take time to rehab that image. And, Drew McIntyre is the champion, but now we've already clearly established that belt is the lesser belt, and that's part of the problem of having 2 belts. But if you can elevate those guys really up to that true main event level and not just the other guy, if you can make them feel like a serious contender, because you've started to really do that with Gunther, it's really working. If you can do that with a Finn, if you can do that with Drew, and then you have Punk and you have Roman, and of course you have Cody, and if you can get a Randy back up there, then you have a bunch of guys that really feel legit. And it's I feel bad saying that they don't, because someone like a Randy Orton's got an amazing resume, but he doesn't feel like he's going to win anything right now, and he hasn't for a while. And that's not right. He's the Viper. He's the killer. He should. And Finn Balor, same thing. He should. So I hope they're really doing it, because it's long overdue and it needs to happen. And it would help make WrestleMania more interesting, because the chase for the main event, the chase for these belts, it doesn't have to be over with Roman winning the Rumble. It doesn't have to be over at Elimination Chamber. You could make creative and compelling TV with those spots potentially being still up for grabs.
So I love your optimism, and I hope, and I'm also hoping that this means that these people are going to get a brighter shine. But we're talking WrestleMania 42, and I don't think that that's going to happen before WrestleMania 42, because when you book a match like CM Punk versus Roman Reigns, you need a night 2 main event. Right now, that's on paper the best night 2 main event you're going to get, box office draw wise. Not talking about in ring, not that it's going to be bad in ring. This is not a shot at their in performance. It's just talking about box office draw, just who you're going to get. That is going to be like you can't. But that's the problem. Now you can't gamble with a Finn Balor winning. And I understand WWE did the real weird trick last year. Remember when Io Sky took the title off of Rhea Ripley and we ended up with the triple threat match at WrestleMania. And we all kind of were like taken by surprise. Listen, what they're doing here is the opposite of that. They're teasing that could happen again. And it's not going to. Or if it does, it's going to be a quick flip-flop back. And that could hurt somebody. Like Finn Balor, if he defeats CM Punk for the World Heavyweight Championship, only to lose it back to CM Punk 2 weeks later or even a month later, it doesn't really help the character. It actually just goes, oh, they just threw the belt on him to throw us off the scent to then show us that they didn't have any faith. Actually hurts them because now it shows that they didn't have any faith to make him the main event of WrestleMania.
Right.
And so I'm happy that they're going to be doing stuff with Finn Balor, it looks like. I'm happy that that's going to happen and they're going to keep going forward with that. But I don't think I think we are going to get, Reigns versus Punk because you need the marquee match. And what that makes me say, and at one end, I'm fine with that. And the reason I'm fine with that is because it's a marquee match. But then that leaves what else on the card? You're really kind of pigeonholing yourself almost to make it Drew McIntyre versus Cody Rhodes again for the Undisputed Championship, when you could have had a fresh matchup. And even though, it wouldn't be, even if you go with my Gunther versus Sammy match, technically speaking, it's not fresh. We've seen it before at WrestleMania, but that's the good part. It's a callback. It's a match that fans would like to see again in a different role. Now it's Gunther who's like, hey, you destroyed my dream. Now I'm going to take yours. And it's a tit for tat. And then that sets up for that rubber match down the road. I understand they've wrestled more than twice already, but you know what I mean? In something that means something. So you would have something there. And granted, you could go with somebody else, but who are you going to put against Drew McIntyre, who, yes, he's a bit of a darling to some, but to others, he's not. Are you going to do last year? Are you going to do it again and give somebody a shot? Is an LA Knight going to get the shot? Where last year we had that with Jey Uso against Gunther, didn't work out so well, right?
That main event scene in WWE is really hurting. It really is, because the Jey Uso experiment didn't really work. Cena retired. AJ's now gone. Seth is out injured. People are not really interested in Brock Lesnar being in the main event scene, and Brock, even if people were, he's not going to commit to being there full time. So. And with the increase in projects that a Cody Rhodes and a Roman Reigns and even a CM Punk are doing now, it's like someone's got to be here on Monday, and that was always the old CM Punk thing. And even there, he's like, someone's got to be here on Monday, and someone's got to be there on Friday to wrestle. And it's starting to really become a little question of who is going to be there, because if we get to WrestleMania and it is Punk and Roman, who wins? Roman? Okay, is Roman going to show up every week? Is Netflix going to be happy with the belt being on someone that doesn't show up every week? I don't think so. So you have Punk win?
I'm with you.
Okay, right. So you have Punk win. I'm like, does that really do anything?
So that leaves my pitch to this. The undercard is what we have to hope for. Because I don't think the main events are going to what we are
at WrestleMania over years.
Right. So this is where they're going to have to change it, because this is where we're going to be on this road to WrestleMania, where we have to really watch. Is Seth Rollins going to be back in time for WrestleMania? If that's the case, okay, that's awesome. That means, to me, Seth Rollins versus Braun Breaker is the choice. Although you could do the triple threat again, but then again, you're rehashing something from last year, which I wouldn't do. But hey, you could elevate a Braun Breaker here. Perfect. You could do this big blow off between Finn Balor and Dominic Mysterio, right? You could get to that. That would be good. You could put an LA Knight in a high profile match. We have time to build that up. So there's a lot of things you can do. And on the other end of it, we have Liv Morgan, who it looks like she hasn't made a decision yet, but I'm pretty sure we're going to get her versus Stephanie Vakir, which is a great match on paper, and in that's going to be a great women's match on the card. But then it leaves Jade Cargill, who we're still at best with, and then hoping maybe Bianca Belair comes back so we have some storyline sense. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of where we're at. Or who we need to find somebody to take the belt off of her quick ASAP.
And I guess maybe that's the thought, is you cement Punk and Roman now the night after the Rumble, and then that story kind of just tells itself, and you can use the rest of the 5-ish hours of TV over the next couple of weeks to to figure everything else out and make it feel valuable, I guess, because I don't know. It's going to be a weird road to WrestleMania again.
Right. It's going to be an arduous road, like I said during our pre-show meeting, because it's either going to be really good and they're going to figure out how to make the undercard really good, or we're going to have, for main events, not even great, but for main events, and then nothing. And I'm hoping the other not main event, I should say, but the other match it looks like they're possibly setting up is the Women's Tag Team Championship match with the Bellas taking on presumably Io and Rhea. Presumably, because that's a good way to keep those two in the scene. Once again, on paper, great match. Brie coming back, great. But in reality, we've been let down by Nikki Bella's performances since she's returned. Granted, Brie's the better of the two in wrestling, and granted, the tag team match hides a little bit. But once again, I get it for star power, but I would, you just said, there's a lot of great tag teams in the women's division. We could put anybody in there to be great.
That would be going for a viral moment and not necessarily going for the most talented people to do it.
And what did Karrion Kross famously say last year? You want a viral moment? I'll give you a viral moment. And then they still dropped the ball on that. So once again, I'm buyer beware. I am excited for the promo that we saw on Monday, but what this means overall to the landscape is fine. If there's any hope, to your point, this is great. We have 5 weeks to just build up Roman and Punk as selling tickets, and then everything else should be built up. But with the creative bankruptcy that we've seen from WWE in the last year, let's call it what it is. Here we are again, staring down. Am I really willing to put my faith in somebody who's burned me so many times? And I'm going to say no. So wait and see. Let's do a little bit of a quick hit here because it's not too much to talk about. But this past week, NXT, great show. We had to declare a new champion, and it was done in a 7-way ladder match. And at the end of the day, say his name, and he'll appear. I believe in the NXT champion, Joe Hendry. That's right. Joe Hendry, in my opinion, was the right choice to be the winner of the NXT championship. What say you, Sammy?
It was a bit of a pick you didn't necessarily really have on your bingo card, and I liked that. I liked that a lot. As much fun as he would be to see on the main roster, having him do the Friday night show, that not everyone catches on Friday night. Most people watch the highlights over the weekend and such. Like, have him be on NXT. Have him run around with those guys. He's a lot of fun over there. I like it.
It's working. I think it works. I think it works great. Yeah. I think this was a good move. And we're going to get to see some really good performances out of this. And once again, you're in a rebuild phase in NXT because a lot of the top stars have now moved up to the main roster. Looking at Javon Evans, looking at Obafemi, looking at, you never know how long an ego Ethan Page is going to be down there because you could pull him up at any time. Ricky Saints is another one that could get pulled up at any time. I'm sure he's going to be down there for a little bit. We've seen in the women's division a real big shakeup, although they're in a lot better shape because obviously JC Jane's doing a fantastic job as champion. And on top of that, you still, Sol Ruka will be up sooner than later, but you still have her for right now and what's happening with Zarya. You have a lot of stuff in the women's division, whereas the men's division is in a rebuild phase. So it's kind of nice because in NXT terms, it's working out like to be how it should have been in real life. The hungry are going to get to eat, and you're going to get to show, and you're going to get to step up. And this is a really good time for somebody who's young and wants to get it to step up and win. And I think we're going to see a lot of that.
It's interesting that you say, the hungry have to step up and eat, because in another quick hit here, the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels, is officially on TikTok with their own account. And I encourage everyone after the show to find his account on TikTok and just take a peek of what image he used for his profile picture. Just take a pic of which one.
There you go. All right. So I'm going to give a disclaimer. We're about to talk. We're switching. We're switching. It's not that we're talking about AEW because we are, but we're switching gears. We are not going to get lost in the sauce or the mud of the politics that are involved. The reason why is this is a wrestling show. Obviously, if you want to know, we can tell you all day long where we stand. I think it'll be pretty damn evident. But that's not the point of this. The point is to talk about AEW and their ever-growing main event scene that is actually exciting. I understand that the AEW haters aren't going to like this, and which is fine. We call it right down the middle, so it doesn't matter. But I also understand that it could piss off a certain portion of the viewing audience. And if it does, I'm sorry that you feel that way, but sometimes you have to take a look at what side of history you're on. So with that being said, this is going to anger some people, but it's also going to speak to something that I think they're doing very good. And that is we saw a huge star emerge and a guy that we've always thought highly of, and that is Big Bad Brody King over in AEW. And I said, is he over? He is over. Over to the point that we can't say the words on YouTube because we would be, our video would be stricken down if we mentioned what was being chanted in the building. Very angrily. And I wish I could just say it, but once again, they will ban the video. That's why I said we're going to stay on the politics of it. But because he has taken such a stand on this social issue that is going on in the United States, he has really emerged as a hero to the people, maybe a villain to some, but most of the people, a hero to the people, and it has really put him in a center stage level. AEW, for what they've been doing since the end of 25 till now, giving Tony Khan all the props in the world, giving him his flowers. What do they do? They strike when the iron's hot. They book him in a main event match against the world heavyweight champion, MJF. And it's a great match. The two of them have great chemistry. We have seen them wrestle before, and it made a star out of Brody King. Now, mind you, he was already a star, but it just made a bigger star and added another name to that ever-growing list of us talking about how healthy the main event scene in AEW is. They have about 8 guys, not even counting the world champion. World champion aside, MJF, because he's your world champion, he is that guy.
Right.
They have 8 challengers, almost a top 10, you could say, that tomorrow could win the belt because of how they have positioned themselves, and it would be fine. And then he would be a challenger, and then we would just be recycling. They're doing the New Japan / All Japan method of having a top 4 guys, musketeers, if you will, only they've extended it out. And they're organically bringing it in. And the whole reason that Brody King comes up is because this was an organic moment to take advantage of him being in the limelight for a social issue, struck when the iron was hot, got the reaction they needed, looked amazing on television, got a lot of mainstream press. They were covered by Forbes, Wall Street Journal, Newsweek, they're covered, New York Times, you name it, they were covered by it. Because of everything. Hell, shout outs to our friend Michael Kingston, because he facilitated a piece of artwork that Daniel Warren Johnson did featuring Brody King that made a lot of money for families in Minneapolis. So, and it got him press. So, Sammy, like I said, we're not diving into the politics, but just from the optics, just from what we've been seeing from AEW, is this another big, like I just portrayed it and I think it's a big W. Is this a big W for AEW?
It's a huge win, and I really hope that the AEW is able to continue to capitalize it. And the only reason why I say I hope that is because AEW historically has had an issue with booking big men talent. If you look at that main event scene, it's a lot of guys that are all very similar in their style of wrestling, the type of things they do. And of course, everyone has their different nuances and such. But at the end of the day, AEW historically has struggled with the big boys. And Brody King is a big boy. So he's a massive talent, absolutely massive talent. And so many people have said so many wonderful things about him. He seems like he's a completely wonderful individual. And it just keeps adding. I love the way that match was laid out. It's we see that type of match all the time, the interference style match, but it worked really good here because the interference was done by people who were credible, people that legit. and again, calling it down the middle because WWE did an interference match count out on Monday Night Raw, and it felt legit. It felt credible. It felt good. So it's good to see both companies going to that well instead of it. Far too often we have seen in wrestling, and AEW is guilty of this, WWE is guilty of this, they're all guilty of this. It's like, oh, we got Kenny Omega, and he's going to be in there with MJF. Well, we're going to get a 20-25 minute match, and they're all going to get their stuff in, and this one's going to do this and that. It's nice to see them go back to these tropes that do get overused at the times, but used effectively, used incredibly, and it's good. It helps a lot. Brody King, keep riding that energy. I hope AEW just keeps running with it because they've been clicking on all cylinders, and keep it going.
Brody King came into wrestling. I mean, he was on the West Coast, but he came in basically after I was out, or even if he came in, he was in the West Coast, I was on the East Coast. So I don't know him personally. I do know people who obviously I worked with who now work with him, who tell me how much of an amazing human being he is. So kudos to him. I'm glad that he's getting the recognition. I'm glad that he's taking it. And I hope that they really ride this wave of momentum as far as they can, because this would be the first, as you point out, real, truly monster, big man that they push to a real high level and show that they can. And I think that I think he is the guy to do it with. He is believable. He is talented in the ring. He is talented on the mic, and he is a good person. Taking that out of so there's that plus for TK. Next plus for TK, there was a time where TK said he didn't want to do the convoluted endings, and that was part of what held AEW back. Pulling this interference ending out and kind of like, perfect. This is where you can use it to effectiveness, and I hope he sees that going, hey, I don't always need to rely on the time limit draw or on the smas or whatever. I can actually, I can actually end this with a non-traditional win-loss kind of way of ending a match,
right,
and actually build forward. I think that we're seeing, and I'm calling it down the middle as somebody who has been very critical of Tony Khan. I think we're seeing a growth in Tony Khan's booking. And I hope that I'm correct. And I hope that continues. And I know that there's still some people out there that are always going to hate everything that AEW does and everything that Tony Khan does. And that's fine. It's fine. But you have to admit that they are doing something right from the end of 2025 till now. And I will say this, I will go on a limb. I will put my money where my mouth is. We are probably a few months away, because we have to get to, let's just call it, let's say June, because 6 months into the year is June. If AEW continues the trend, I don't care about ratings, I don't care about ticket sales, I don't care about any of that. If by June we're heading into the biggest event of the year being All in Wembley, if at June they are still firing on all cylinders and we're not back to going, oh man, well, Dynamite was a mess. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying they can't have, I'm not saying every show has to be perfect. You're allowed to have, off nights. It happens, right? But I'm saying consistently, if they continue to do what they're doing now, Tony Khan, I will go back out. I will buy another All Elite Wrestling hat and I will wear it on air. I used to do that back when you first started. And then, things happened. But I will then put my money where my mouth is and say, I believe in AEW. I can't say that. I'm proud of where they are. I'm giving you your kudos. TK, you want to reach out, reach out. You know what I mean? It is what it is. But hey, congratulations on doing a fine job. I don't know if Tony Khan would have pulled the hot iron on Brody King a year ago, but I'm glad he's doing it now. Strike when the iron's hot, because you just got a shit ton of press because of what the crowd was chanting. Once again, I would say what the crowd was chanting, but YouTube would ban the video. So we're not going to play games. But just know that that hit a resonance with a lot of people, and it touched outside of the wrestling world. So not only did you win big promoting a guy who now you have another person in the main event scene that's already doing well, not only did you book a great match with a great finish, not only are you setting, a tone for yourself, but you're now also touching outside of the world of wrestling and getting noticed by mainstream media and other things, which is only going to be better for business. Kudos to them. Kudos. It was a good move. All right, we got a few minutes left, and we like to end editorially, and I want to end on a high note because, obviously talking in loops because we can't talk about the political ramifications, obviously, being A, a wrestling show, but B, we don't want our video to get banned. we are going to go and talk about the man who just his career ended, and that, of course, the phenomenal AJ Styles. Last week we talked about legacy and explained that, listen, no matter how you measure it, he's got one of the biggest legacies in all of pro wrestling. I don't want to talk about legacy again. Now that the career is over, I want to talk about impact and what AJ Styles meant to us. And us as wrestling fans and people in the business, or me, we're formerly working in the business. Unfortunately, I had left the territory, if you will, before AJ Styles had his match for 2CW. But I will say that I've heard from everybody he worked with. He's as phenomenal as everybody says he is, not just in the ring, but outside of the ring. So we're going to go from a fan point, and I'll start with you, Sammy. AJ Styles. Remember AJ Styles? How, with the career?
As time passes, I'm going to remember AJ Styles for just channeling some of the things that I'm most passionate about in wrestling. Is, as you famously say, is everyone can do the moves. You got to be able to talk on the mic. And AJ was one of those guys that was able to do it all. But when it came to the in-ring work, he made it look so effortless. Everything was crisp. Everything was done with a purpose. Every movement, every action, and yeah, he's not perfect. No wrestling is. Like, at the end of the day, wrestling is a crazy, over the top stunt show at times. But AJ just made it look so easy at times, and to have that kind of staying power in wrestling. Someone that started all the way back in the WCW days. Like, I mean, who's left from WCW at this point that's still active? Rey Mysterio, I guess. Dustin Rhodes. Like, that list is getting pretty short. And AJ really ushered in a new generation of how wrestling's done, and you see it everywhere in the business now. Everyone does what AJ does. So when you go to, in 10 years from now, AJ is going to be one of those names where it's like, I look at tapes of Shawn Michaels, I look at tapes of Bret Hart, I look at tapes of Bryan Danielson, I look at tapes of AJ Styles. Those are the guys that you look at, unless, of course, you're massive. Then you look at tapes of like the Undertaker and stuff. But that's a different story. Anyway, AJ is going to be one of those guys that's forever remembered for what he brought to the wrestling, and just that pure excellence of his ability to execute things.
I'm glad you said that. AJ Styles to me was the next incarnation, the next coming of the Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart. And what I mean by that is, I'm not saying it's the same in-ring style, but remember, they were smaller guys. I mean, I understand Shawn Michaels like 6'1", but still at the time, very smaller guys who got it done in the ring, and that people, really busted the glass ceiling. AJ was that guy as well. He continued that trend on. He made it so, like, now when you talked earlier about, like, and this is not a shot at anybody, so don't think it's a shot, but when you're talking about how you have some smaller guys that work for AEW and they're in the main event picture or whatever, he's the guy that made that realistic. And that's why it works. And because you can have talent, you can tell big stories, you can do bigger and larger than life things and bigger than you are, as long as you have the talent and the drive. And AJ Styles had that. Consummate professional in and out of the ring. You hear that all the time. And I think that shouldn't be understated. He is a guy who, the reason there's a TNA wrestling to this day is because of AJ Styles. Just throwing that out there. Single-handedly, what took that company off was him, Samoa Joe, and Christopher Daniels feuding over the X Division title and then later the world title as that went on. To me, one of my first times seeing AJ Styles, outside of, like, I saw him when he was on Nitro, I saw him on Ring of Honor, but one of the first times I remember being like, oh man, AJ Styles is a big deal to me. He was in one of the greatest tournaments of all time. I hate bringing up IWA Mid-South because of the owner of that company, but they did a tournament every year. Originally it was called the Sweet Science Tournament. After Ted Petty unfortunately passed away, they changed it to the Ted Petty Invitational. In 2003, it was one of the greatest years of the TPI of all time, and he was the man who went out there and won the whole damn tournament. By the way, the finals was a triple threat because it was so many guys in. And the finals of that tournament was Samoa Joe versus AJ Styles versus the American Dragon, Bryan Danielson. That was the finals. AJ won that match. So many people were in that tournament. So many great wrestlers. Go and search that out. If you could probably find that on YouTube and elsewhere. So search it out. But that right there will show you that even as a younger wrestler in 2003, AJ Styles was that damn good. And he deserves all the accolades, and salutes to a gigantic career. Do I think he'll never lace him up again? I say never say never. As Stephanie McMahon said on the podcast that they did, I feel like there's nobody who has never not had another match after, just some fewer than others. I think AJ is going to be one of those guys that's fewer than others. He might have one or two that he decides that it seems like he does want to do something. If one of his sons ends up, or a daughter ends up in the business, he wants to do something with them. So I'm assuming we're going to see him there, and that's what he's going to do. But so long down the road, as much respect and everything and admiration that John Cena got for his full year retirement, AJ Styles deserves that. However, AJ Styles, being the humble guy that he is, I don't think he would have ever done a full year tour. And so it's kind of, in a weird way, it's fitting that he goes out technically in the first month of the year. So
yeah,
once again,
well, like Royal Rumble debut and retired at Royal Rumble. I mean, that's
there's symmetry. There's symmetry, and then also, like I said, the anti-Cena. Cena took a whole 12 months, which he deserved. I'm not saying he didn't. AJ went, we're going to do it in the first month. So I feel like it's a dichotomy.
Yeah, just one last quick thing. If there was a Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame, much like there is like an MLB Hall of Fame, and part of the MLB Hall of Fame is they debate, which cap they're going to wear if they played on multiple teams. And obviously he's wearing a TNA hat, but it's a real testament to his legacy that decision is just a little bit harder to say after his WWE career, after spending 10 years and accomplishing great things there. At the end of the day, yes, he's wearing a TNA hat, but at least there is an argument to be made, which is a testament to his ability.
You could argue he could wear the hat of all three of the major companies he worked for, TNA, New Japan, and WWE. You could make an argument he deserves to be in the Hall of Fame in each of each of their own Hall of Fames. But even if there was one, like, I understand there's multiple Hall of Fames. There's a Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame in Amsterdam, New York, even. Shout outs to them, amongst other places. But I'm just saying, if there was like the gigantic one shrine that we all called the shrine of that, like the one place, he would be in there. He could be in there for all three teams separately and still have three Hall of Fame careers. Even though his stay in Japan was like 2 years or less, still did a lot of great things,
massive impact in those times.
So kudos, and once again, definitely will be missed. And we are living in a world that will no longer have AJ Styles or John Cena in it, and it kind of sucks a little bit because I guess as an older cat, But I've been through this before. We've seen our other generational heroes leave. I remember crying when Shawn Michaels retired. So there you go.
We've been hit hard recently. I mean, we lost Cena, we lost Styles, we lost Goldberg. I get Goldberg kind of overstayed his welcome, but we grew up in the Attitude Era. We remember the Monday Night Wars. We remember Goldberg when Goldberg was red hot. So go easy on us, right? We lost a lot.
It's been a long year. It's been a long year. With that being said, though, With that being said, we're only going a couple minutes over, so hopefully if you stayed with us, instead of switching over to TNA Wrestling, which we do always suggest going over and watching Thursday Night Impact, it has been a fine show over on AMC. Just throwing it out there, thank you for tuning into us, though, and hearing us pontificate about all this stuff in pro wrestling. We are always humbly blessed for everybody who watches live and also on the replay. Always, we want to hear from you. If you want to drop in the chat, you want to drop in the comments, we always want to hear from you, so please let us know what you want to see, what you want to talk about. All we ask is you just keep it, above table, and everybody be respectful of everybody, just because, hey, at the end of the day, we're all wrestling fans, and there's enough toxic stuff happening in the world of pro wrestling and in the world in general that, hey, if we can have some place where we can go and just explain it and just kind of have a good time talking about pro wrestling, that's what we would like to provide here at 607 TWS, The Wrestling Show, and of course, also at Fanlight Zone's YouTube channel, and as a whole, fanlightzone.com. So the QR code's there. Go over there, check it out. We are trying to build a community, and so far, so good. And thank you guys for making that happen as well. With that being said, though, make sure you do smash the subscribe button, click that bell icon for notifications, and click the thumbs up to help us out in the algorithm and help us grow. We appreciate that as well. Make sure you're following us on the socials and going over to fanlightzone.com. Use that QR code to get all those social media things. And of course, we are here every Thursday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, to talk pro wrestling with you. So join us at 607 TWS, The Wrestling Show, right next week, as we will be talking about more of the road to WrestleMania, because it will be unveiling itself every week. We'll also be talking about every new thing that comes up because God knows what's going to happen between now and then. Of course, we do have the Super Bowl. I understand that that's not pro wrestling. However, pro wrestling superstar Bad Bunny is doing the halftime show, so we have that win as well. So hopefully everybody enjoys the big game and, of course, comes back to talk pro wrestling next week on the show. So for myself, for Miss Sammy over there, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and until next week, later, wrestling fans.